I think the polls are overcompensating for the mistakes they made against Trump 8 years ago, and now they're leaning too far the other way. And I also don't think they're taking into account the new registrants who are so new they're not usually being polled, who are mostly women, mostly younger. The polls continue to make this look like a very close race. I would be, number one, I'd be surprised if Harris doesn't win nationally by at least 8 million votes. I mean, I don't think that the popular vote will be that close. I do think in the so-called swing states, and Pennsylvania is certainly probably the largest swing state. Trump is spending more money in, I think, Pennsylvania and Georgia than any other state. Harris is outspending him in Arizona and Michigan, but in Pennsylvania is where Trump is putting his effort. Both candidates are spending a ton of money and time here. And the news media loves to cover a horse race. It's more interesting. So it sort of helps them if it looks close. Conversely, I would hope the Harris campaign would also treat it as being close. I think the only way she can lose is if she would take it for granted and wasn't working as hard as she was. But I think the pollsters, the professional pollsters, got a lot of criticism after the Clinton race. And they didn't compensate for sort of the underlying support that Trump had at that point. And now they're overcompensating for that. I think what's more important than the polling data that shows this as being within margin of error, a percentage point here or there, is the fact that so many young people are registering more at a rate higher than ever before, mostly younger women. Those are people that are just getting registered in the last month. They're not being polled. And a lot of younger people, unless, even if you're texting them, even if you can acquire their cell phone numbers, and they're not being too responsive. So that's another issue. I don't think the polls can be, they're a nice guideline to have and they can show trends, but I think this fact that it's a horse race, I don't know if it is or not. But I know what's more important, especially here at the end, is the level of enthusiasm. I see a MAGA base that will always be for Trump no matter what, but I don't see the enthusiasm there that I do for the Harris campaign right now. That's not going to mean that this area is going to go Democratic, but I think Harris will do better than Biden did, and I think she'll do better than the polls show. I am cautiously optimistic about this campaign. I think Harris will win by a large amount in the popular vote, and I think she'll win enough for the Electoral College vote. I'm more concerned about what's going to happen post-election. And you can tell with some of the things that Trump says don't seem to make sense because he's not trying to get votes or expand his base. But what he's trying to do is lay the groundwork to challenge this the same way he did 4 years ago. What concerns me about that is, and I think he would lose all these things in court, but what concerns me is he's got some people in place throughout the country on boards that certify local election results. There's a cutoff in this country, I think, by December 11th, whenever all the votes from the states have to be certified. If he can delay that, then it's a possibility that Harris could win the popular vote by millions of votes, have more electoral votes, but not have the requisite 270 at the right date, which could throw it into the U.S. House. So those delaying tactics could serve him politically, but also in another way. We saw the violence of 4 years ago at the Capitol. I think there are more threats of violence now. I don't think it'll be organized in that way at one direct point. But there are key places, and I'm not saying that there could be some acts of random violence by rogue actors, but every day you delay longer, there's a greater chance of that, and there's a greater chance of planned violence, especially in key areas where the vote hasn't been certified. Yeah. So I think there is a greater threat of violence this time than there even was before.